get to make your life shine. You gotta be working to get the woman and the wine. Keep the beat and get your hands in the air. Shuffle it deep cause it's an African affair. Took over the park and our home at St. George's. We're bringing the silverware back on the gorgeous. That's the way of the warrior. That's the way of the warrior. That's the way of the warrior. That's the everyday warrior. It's time, ladies and gentlemen, for Gino's spot on this Tuesday. Every single Tuesday, 6:30, and I hope that you're sorted tonight. You've got a little drink in your hand, a little glass of wine, a little gin and tonic. We use a little Fitch and Leeds. We got a little bit of Fitch and Leeds tonight, and get yourself comfortable. If you're not on our YouTube channel, get on our YouTube channel as well. It's the easiest way to watch, and then you can cast it, to your TV if you're that way inclined. If you're good enough, otherwise, ask your grandchildren. They can make your internet appear on your TV magically. Indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we got Hennie Le Roux on with fires. It's firing on all cylinders tonight, as you can see in the corner there. See the fires from Vuuren in the studio, getting his guests together. He's got people all over the place, all over the country, and so it's always an interesting guest when Fires is around. And we've got a special thing tonight. Sean Thompson is watching all the way from the States as well, Sean. And while we're on the subject of this Spar, thank you to Spar, our sponsors. Our sponsors keep us alive here in the Bay. In Nelson Mandela Bay, we've got Gino Spot, and Gino Spot needs the sponsors to go. And Spar have been fantastic with us, as well as Amerbia for our internet, and Fitch and Needs. Thanks so much for the donations. But we have tonight, and tonight only, indeed, ladies and gentlemen, we have another sponsor. But it's because Sean Thompson has gone back to his roots. And he said to me that my pineapple jacket, it wasn't cool. I didn't take it too seriously at the time, but then it started to hurt me that my pineapple jacket wasn't good enough. And so, but then I was made happy today because he has sent me a shirt and Fires as well. We've got shirts tonight. Instinct has made. So I'm taking off my pineapple jacket to make him happy tonight. Sean, I'm making you happy. And we put on the surf outfits. Tonight we got Instinct. How's that, eh? Instinct. Remember that? With the hush puppies and the freaking, the what do you call it? Those the pastels and the whole vibe. But we got Instinct is relaunching. That's right. Oh, there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Instinct, fantastic. So thanks to Sean for sending the shirts all the way across the seas, and we'll be certainly wearing them tonight as well. And lucky to see some of the old footage there of Sean Thompson on his pintail in the barrel, of course. Oh, there we go. Reading the surface code. There we go. Camilla Ellis, reading the surface code. Yes, is Sean's book. And a cup of tea. Oh, very nice. A cup of tea. That's very, very good. And Wendy Thompson. There we go. Wendy's online. Loved Instinct. Yes, I know. It became really part of the whole surf scene was big at that time. I'm trying to remember the surf shops in those days. What were they called? Oceans. I think Oceans Surf Shop. There was one in Ring Street somewhere. Put it in the comments. I can't remember what they were called. There were quite a few of them. Dennis Ellis as well. Brendan Kelly. No drink for you, Net, but going live a bit later. Oh yes, the Second Gear talk show. Excellent. I'll have a look at that then, Brendan, because I see you've been very busy online doing the commentating for all the motorsport around the area, which it's fantastic to watch that stuff as well. Brendan, thank you for making that available to us. That's marvelous. You can photo. I think it's Motormouth. I think just maybe put a link in the comments there, Brendan, so the guys can click on it and then subscribe as well. Country Feeling was the one. Yes, that was Sharon Kroc and that lot as well. Also did that. They had a whole bunch of stuff. The Billabong stuff started there as well. But tonight we are Instinct because they have launched. Indeed, we have launched for us. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're not even gonna go and do the song tonight. Fires, we're gonna get going straight away because I think people are online and ready to go. So we're gonna get our guest. We've got Hennie Le Roux live in the studio. Yeah, so we've got some drinks ready. We got put your feet up, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't got a drink now, go fetch one because we're gonna start right now. Welcome to the show. Now it's your time to shine. We're gonna have a chat tonight. Another good time. Oh, and we are in. Are we in?
We're in.
Faiz, you can
Welcome.
Come back a little bit.
Wonderful to see you. Wonderful to meet you.
Yes, fantastic for you to come live in the studio. I almost thought you were gonna be you were in Joburg, so I thought you were gonna come in on a live stream, but here you are in the flesh. It's amazing.
Yeah, we made the big move end of last year, so
and
kind of moved in Jan this year. So it's nice to be back at home.
Okay.
Grahamstown originally.
Yes.
And then school there, and then came to university at GPE. Was school then, and
That's right.
cut my teeth on the rugby field here, and made my first big steps from here.
So
was it great to be back and enjoying the Windy City.
Was it Graham College, Kingswood,
I was at Graham College, yeah.
Graham College, okay. And not St Andrews. Not St Andrews, we've had a number of St Andrews guys.
I'm sure you would have knocked them over regularly. No, I must say, it's an absolute honor to have Hennie Le Roux with us tonight. And what really intrigues me and what's fantastic for me, especially to be with him, is that 1995 World Cup, which, I think it's got to be the greatest spectacle of any sport in South Africa, or of any sporting event, should I say.
Certainly for South Africans.
Absolutely.
It was like the pinnacle.
Absolutely.
And were you first centre?
Played centre and the one game fly-off, but mostly at centre during the World Cup, yeah.
Yeah, ringside seats to the things as well as on the field getting daunted by these Jonah Lomu.
Yeah, I got to tell you a story. And I think I told you on the phone the other day. We went to that World Cup final, and I approached Peter Am, your brother-in-law, for a ticket. And I ended up getting this ticket from Peter via you. And it had, if you remember, the World Cup tickets in '95 had an overprint of where you were sitting.
All right.
Or it might not have been where you were sitting. It was more, I think, who bought the ticket.
Yeah.
So if Gino Fabry bought a ticket, they'd have an overprint there, Gino Fabry. And the ticket that I got from Peter Am said Springboks West Upper. And you had given him the ticket. And then at the 11th hour, we got a box seat, a seat in a box.
Yeah.
And that particular seat for that ticket, Peter Am had his cooler box on that seat. I still got that ticket. And I think if I'm right in saying, only Mark Keohane, if that's the right way of pronouncing his name, and I have an untorn ticket. I think he got sick on his way to the ground.
Oh, no way.
Or couldn't get in there, and so I've still got that ticket. Thank you for that.
Wow,
Thank you for that. Bye, Peter Am.
It not only tells you that things got something, that Pfizer got, but it also tells you there's a bit of a hoarder.
I
Doesn't
do
like
hoard.
to tell you things.
I do hoard.
He's got like lots of cuck at home. I think he's got like rooms full
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
So you got a triple garage, guys. That's
Yes,
We
yes,
do
yes.
actually, we do. There's so much cuck in the third garage anyhow. There's a guy hunting me for cricket shirts. And I'm too scared to get into that third garage because I'm sure on the ground there'll be a few puff headers and boxes
Yeah, I know.
from when we moved back from Durban. But anyway, that's all.
But again, any memories you have from that particular World Cup? That I mean, it's always the one that people ask you about. So we'll get that done. We'll get that done now.
No, look, obviously there's a lot of very, very special memories. You know, arriving in Cape Town for the kickoff of the tournament and the support that was given to the team just by the locals and by the hotel staff and so forth. It was heart moving. It was really good, and we'll never forget the opening Test match against the then world champions Australia, and Newlands is built. It was built quite steep. You feel the crowd, and we stood in front of the grandstand and sang the national anthem at the end of it, and there was an almighty roar that came off the stand, and I was standing there and I looked down, and I didn't know if it was my nerves or what it was, but my jersey was shivering. And then I realised it was the sound of the people and the roar from the people of the stand. When I turned around there's just no ways we were going to lose that test.
But now, interestingly enough, how long before that World Cup did you come together as a team? Or how long prior to that World Cup was the team actually selected for that World Cup?
Look, they usually it was still amateur in those days, so people couldn't really afford to take a long time off. I think it was probably 2 or 3 weeks max.
So were you actually working for a company during that World Cup?
Yeah, everyone had jobs that they had to.
You're kidding?
Yeah. I mean, that was the whole issue because the pressure that we were under prior, and particularly after, and so forth as well, that led to the formation of the Players Association, because there was a lot of pressure on players to spend more time. It was overseas, play more games. People wanted to train twice a day and so forth, and to hold down a job and play without earning anything. And where was the money going, really?
Well, where, if I may ask, was it good?
Well, I think it went into stadiums and.
Okay, I understand where you're coming.
But there might have been, there was a lot of money kind of flowing around, and we look back and we saw a lot of the older folk walking on crutches and all sorts of things, and said, "Well, hang on, this has got to change."
Sure.
It's time.
The older rugby players.
I think there was a bit of a movement during the Cavalier tour. For payment and as well, which was a little ahead of us, probably 6 or 8 years ahead of us.
That was 86, was it not?
Around about there,
Cavaliers,
And there was already movement in terms of players saying they need to be looked after a little better. And when '95 came, then obviously the whole issue between Murdoch and Packer.
So
that
the
was
TV
quite
rights.
an interesting play that took place, and it was. We were in the midst of that because the world needed the champions. Whoever were the champions at that stage were dictating what was going to happen.
Yes.
So we had signed contracts of Packer, stuck away in a safe somewhere, and, and Murdoch coming to us with different offers, and Louis Lake trying to make different changes in the agreement at 99 and all
How was
sorts.
Louis
So
Late?
it
I
was-
mean, because at that time he was such a powerful guy in rugby. And I'm sure not only rugby, but
in business
he
as
just
well.
gave the impression that he was some sort of mafia boss. One day.
Look, he was very astute in how he went about things, and he was a bit of an autocrat. I think, sometimes you look at Africa. Someone said to me the other day, Africa is made for dictators. I said, no, I believe in democracy. But then you go and look at a country like Rwanda.
Yes.
If you've got a benevolent dictator, the country works.
Absolutely.
now you're going to look at democracy else in Africa. It's not working.
Yeah.
So how do you get this right?
Yeah.
I'm not in favour of dictatorship at all. The right form of democracy would be the right thing, but maybe there's a mix somewhere between. But I'm not a politician, so I'm not going to venture there at all.
Sure.
But getting back to Louis, I mean, he had an eye for a gap and he could exploit things. He was a master at being able to exploit things.
Especially for an old lock.
But you know, life changes, and it's quite dynamic. When you achieve, when you're at the bottom, you can have a coach who needs to drive that requirement of, you know, you suffer till you make it type of thing. And then once you kind of make it, you've got to adjust the way you deal with people and so forth. And Louis, obviously, the way he structured SA Rugby at the time, there were 14 provinces. Six of them were test union provinces, but all 14 had similar votes.
Yeah. Okay.
And what he did is he structured the setup so that 8 of them who were in the majority, he'd look after them and make sure that he retained the vote against the 6 test unions. And that's how the structure played out originally in the old days. So he remained, you know, quite entrenched from that point of view. And then when this whole incident in '95 took place, and I've up to then I only had, you know, good things really to say to him, because through Harry Viljoen I, you know, got drafted up to the Lions up there, or Transvaal
From Eastern Province.
From Eastern Province,
Yeah.
So, you know, and I had a great career. Joburg has been fantastic to me, and you know, I can't complain about that at all. I really had a fantastic career there. And then, you know, post that.
It was a cat, so
Don't go there.
Hold on a sec.
That was the mix of the Lions and the Free State, and we couldn't.
That's right.
We could never really
correct.
get that mixed together for some reason. You know, in theory, it seemed like the right thing to do. And yet the dynamics, for some reason, you know, just didn't work.
Yeah.
And then obviously post the '95 episode, you know, Louis felt that he was betrayed by the players in some form or another.
Yeah.
So it became a little bit acrimonious.
Oh dear. Okay.
And hence, you know, you might remember the Bali Swart red card.
Oh, Jesus.
So that was
Quite
the catalyst.
Well, what actually happened?
For the Players Association. So
Didn't Bali then end up giving the ref a red card as well?
he picked up the red card.
That's right.
And it was Watson, I believe the referee was, and he went up to. He was busy.
Andre Watson.
Speaking to
You're
one of the
quite right.
players
Yes.
who had done something wrong. So Bali went up to him and says, "Here's your rooi kaart, geef hom 'n rooi kaart." So Watson, obviously knowing that he's now on TV with a red card getting shoved up his nose, got highly peeved and sent Bali off.
Correct, I remember that. Jesus.
And then what happened was, you know, in the corridors, they just said, "Listen, they're going to make an example of him in rugby and he'll never play again."
Yeah.
So I jumped in and I got some very clever lawyer at the time to come and help him out, and they sorted that out. And post that, you know, the contracting process, there was a constant play to try and find ways to end contracts, which became problematic.
Yes.
Which, you know, didn't, you know, it wasn't a great atmosphere to be involved, but you know, you persevered, you contract, you had obligations, and you had to fulfill those. So and that's
cat's one of those.
Yeah, and that's when you know, through all those incidences, that in '97, you know, the Players Association was formed.
Okay.
Let's stay though with pre-95, because that's, I think, the bit that the viewers would love to hear. So just to drill down into your early years, or the early stages of your career, You came from Graham College. You obviously played Craven Week rugby, one would assume.
Yeah.
Were you spotted there? Or?
Yeah.
So you then moved to Port Elizabeth, is that correct?
I came and studied at UPE. It was out of UPE that I really got a chance to play. Alan Zondag was the coach, and I still don't quite know what he saw in me, but
We're going to show the viewers what they saw in you. Don't worry.
He
found a few clips.
He liked the French style of play, you know, flat on the advantage line and that type of thing, and he encouraged me a lot in terms of that, and managed to, you know, come from. I started off according to some guys in under 20 Cs, and then bolted up to
Under 20 Cs.
Yeah, it was quite an interesting thing.
And you had played Craven Week.
Yeah, but according to one or two people, my head was a little bit big at the time. So I ended up in the C team.
Okay.
And then we ended up playing under 20s and so forth. So at the SAUs, and things went well, and I just came back and I just wasn't really motivated in the under 20 squad. And luckily Doc Anis Marais was the first team coach at that stage.
Okay.
And you know, I said, look, I want to rather go and play opens.
Yeah.
And
as another 20.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
jeez.
you know, yeah. At the end of the year, I was lucky to go through the first reserves and play, you know, intervarsity against Stellenbosch. So that was kind of the approach through the university.
Was that your first
Well,
big
well,
game?
I'll tell you what.
That was the first kind of big game at the UPE field.
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, post that there was I've got to tell you this story. So I think this was the following year. There was an EP invitation against the SA Barbarian side.
Oh wow.
And at that stage, you know, Eastern Province was ruled by dispatch and some real big, strong fellows.
Yeah, put a human.
Put a human. Put a ball of tiki.
Oh, shucks. And anyway, we you know, it was, I think it was an end February game. I mean, you can imagine Grahamstown.
Yeah.
So some jubilee or something going on there. And Grahamstown must have been 45. And it was hell of a hot. And you know, the EP boys never really started training until you got to about June, July.
Yeah.
You know, then they started. So you can imagine what it was like end of Feb. And anyway, I was a student, obviously young and eager to kind of prove my worth in the EP invitation side. And the referee gave us a penalty, and the game had gone from 22 to 22 with a couple of passes. And so the boys were pretty tired, and I was on the spot and I had the ball, and the ref said, what you going to do? Now, I couldn't, and I was waiting for the captain, and everyone was looking around, and in the distance, France was coming, very tired, grass and sweat all over him. He waddles up and he said, ref, is dit die merk die?
Frans Erasmus.
Frans Erasmus had arranged
Jo,
made it to the
Domkrag.
mark.
Domkrag was hy. Yes sir.
And he said, ja Frans, maak gou. Jy mors tyd. So Frans took the ball and he shoved it into my chest, then he knocked me out. And he said, hierso, skop die bal uit, maar moenie te ver skop nie, ons moet nog so intoe hardloop. I was probably the most confused I've ever been in my life in the rugby field. But yeah, it was that is a good story. And and anyway, yeah, so we that was kind of the first real game that I started playing with some of the big names.
Who was playing in that EP team back then?
What year was it?
Oh, you're cornering me now. I think it was probably, could it be 88, 89, around about 89, I think, around about
Garth
there.
Wright still around?
Yeah, I think Garth was around there, you know, there was some...
Donnie still playing?
I think Donnie had gone to Western Province.
I think he had just gone to Western Province.
Province.
Yeah, but
it must have been hard for Donnie.
Yeah.
And then when did you get into the EP side?
So the EP side, I think it was 89, kind of 90,
And if
I
I may
spent
ask, how old were you?
27 games for Eastern Province.
What is it, 20-year-old?
No. I had a not a cruciate, but a medial ligament injury, so that kept me out for a year in a club game. So I kind of was now probably about 23, around about that.
Okay.
22, 23. So yeah, and from there I was very, very fortunate to play for the junior Boks against Namibia.
Okay.
And
hang on a sec. I think that's the one. If you don't mind, let's have a look at this to see the genius of Hennie Le Roux. I think that's
a very good replacement for Andres Tues, who was one of their really brilliant players. Inside to McDonald. Strauss. Theon Strauss. Gets support from Audrey Cullenhuis. Good second plays. Robert Dupree. Hennie Le Roux through a gap. This should be a try. Hennie Le Roux, and it does it all itself. Hennie Le Roux. Lovely try. With a little bit of shadow tackling going on.
Maar die Namibiërs sal moet leer om te duik en agter die pale kyk net. Hulle is baie bly, baie beslis.
Yeah, Axel was mobbing you there, man. Did you survive?
fantastic. What a great try. What a great
Fantastic
try.
try.
Oh,
Fantastic.
So bursts of speed, that was your thing. Right.
So
I don't
that
know
was
about that,
was that the first sort of step up to?
yeah, that was the first step up, and then a really great memory that I'll always bear with me is the Yardley Gold.
Yes, I
night
remember
series.
that.
I
In
think
the
that was the
early
only cup.
90s.
It was the only cup that Eastern Province has ever really won.
Were you part of that side?
I was part of that side.
Wow.
Yes, correct.
And
In 93,
it was
92, thereabouts.
on a Tuesday night or
Quite
something to
correct.
that effect.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, remember playing in the final against Transvaal, and we had a great game, and I think we walked away with the trophy. And
Quite correct.
Jeez, like,
so
91, 92.
You know,
if I'm not
all the-
mistaken.
90, yeah, I think
all the
it was
photographers
90.
then at that time were obviously following Fires because he was wearing the triple crown with Kepi and that lot. Was that later?
But after,
Yeah.
but after, but
Okay.
you're quite right. I remember that.
He was.
I remember that. So, okay, now you're in the EP setup.
Yeah.
What then got you to Transvaal?
I think Harry Viljoen wanted to change the way rugby was played. Nas had a very dominant career in South Africa,
Yes.
and it was very much 10-man style of playing, which the rules helped, and at that particular time, Nas was a genius when it comes to kicking the ball. I still don't know anyone that could kick a ball like him. I don't even see it today.
Yeah.
But I think Harry's idea was to play more attacking type of game, and that's what and that served the basis really for I think the resurgence out of Transvaal as well, because we won a couple of Currie Cups, and that was the initiation. Well, not the initial wave of people that came in with Harry, and so he was very motivational at the time, and when we left, then Kitch arrived, and
Yes, we spoke about him earlier.
Amazing.
So Harry Viljoen got you to Transvaal.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And was it a great turning point or a big turning point in your career? In other words, had you stayed here, do you think you would have been
In the box.
in that 95 side?
Yeah, good question. I don't know. I'm a firm believer that you become successful out of the team that you play in. Unless you got an unbelievable skill set, like a Danny Gerber, for example.
Yeah.
You can play EP. I mean, Springbok's out of an EP side.
Yeah.
Australian EP side, for example.
Yeah.
Where midgets like me have to get help from other
You're very
people.
humble. You're very humble though.
Midgets.
So when did you arrive at Transvaal? Or how long prior to that 95 World Cup were you in Joburg?
Probably it was 4 years, I think. I think I arrived there in 91.
Okay.
And
Tues.
and then spent the next kind of 10 years there. Had wonderful memories and involved in winning Super 10s and
Yes,
and
very much.
the one particular year I think it was the 93 or 94 side that kind of won everything that was on display. So
Jeez.
very proud to have been involved with that team.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
very, very.
And then going back to, sorry, Gino.
No, so that was you're trying. Then you had this like there was that because it was Super 10. You say it was Super 10. Was that when the provinces were still playing with Super Rugby? I think, was it franchised out? Did it start here and then it was then they joined up with Australia and New Zealand? The whole thing. When did that whole thing happen? I can't remember. The Super 14 or this.
I think it started, as you say, with Super 10.
Super
didn't it?
10.
Started the Super 10, yeah.
And what were the
idea-
overseas
It was
teams
Australia and New Zealand,
as well,
kind
okay.
of that triangle.
Okay.
Apparently the idea came from the guy in charge of New Zealand rugby.
Uh-huh.
Phoned Louis late at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
Well, it was probably 9 o'clock in the morning in New Zealand.
Yes.
And Hugh Bladen told me the story. He said, do you know that it's 3 o'clock in the morning here? And I said, well, what do I know? I'm only a sheep farmer. And Louis later apparently said to him, well, stick to sheep farming. But he was trying to give him the idea
Yes.
of Super 10 rugby.
Okay. Wow.
That's as I recall
Exactly.
the story. And so that was probably what? The mid-90s, eh?
Yeah, it was because Super 10 happened before 95.
95.
Yeah.
Because 95 seems to be that's the benchmark thing, right? I mean, you did 95 World Cup. Did you play? How many games did you play at? Did you play all the games? In 95.
Yeah, at the World Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of them. You were right there.
But now, let's get down to the brass tacks here, because what has always intrigued me, and I've never spoken to a World Cup winner,
Yeah.
so certainly from my side, it's an honor to
Absolutely.
No,
talk
not
to
at all. No, I mean,
you. I know you're very humble, though.
No,
Yeah.
I want to know now, if you don't mind, prior to that World Cup, when did you guys get together? Because we saw all these photographs, and I remember my son, who funny enough plays for the Lions, had a photo or pictures on his wall of you Oaks with these magnificent six packs and huge muscles running up and down.
Stalled
So if you were working, I mean, where we, oh jeez, I couldn't have been far off. You might remember those photographs. That all you Oaks in the back line had these massive, or beautiful six packs and huge muscles prior to that World Cup. So I mean, there must have been
training.
Surely you got together as a squad well in advance of that World Cup, or did you just rock up and jaw?
For your
no,
own
if I
style,
hadn't got the times right. Are you sure?
I promise you.
It could have been a training session at Megawatt Park. Not that the lights are on there.
They were on at that time.
You should say that. No, prior to that World Cup, there were pictures going out in magazines of that 95 side running at practice, obviously, in shorts, no tops on.
It's probably Houston Juba.
Well, I'm sure there were some of you as well, but no, the Oaks were, I mean, that just, you were saying earlier that it wasn't a professional era.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where did you get the time to do that training? I mean,
I think 2 weeks before, teams were allowed to come together 2 weeks before. There was some law
for
at
all
that
the
stage,
sides?
For all sides, yeah.
Jeez.
2 weeks definitely wasn't longer than
So until
3 weeks before that you could come together as a training squad.
Wow.
Because I think you started off with 32 players and they kicked some of the lazy ones out, and then you ended up
oh really?
and you ended up with a squad of, I think it was 27 that we actually
Jeez.
had. Yeah.
Okay.
And you didn't know if you were going to get a match player either. I mean, surely
Yeah.
it was literally last minute. So I mean, you must have showed your mettle, because I mean, if you were in there the whole time.
And well, I'll tell you the question I have.
Yeah.
That first game was on the 25th of May, and as you rightly said, I mean, your jersey was vibrating from,
At Newlands.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what was the expectation of that squad you were in? Did you feel that you had a chance to win this World Cup, or were you just rocking up and hoping?
No. I mean, at that level, we had just, in fact, a year or two before, we had just played had an England tour out here.
Yes.
And as the Transvaal side, we gave them the test side a convincing smack of 32, I think it was 12 or something.
Wow.
And because the majority of that side really came out of Transvaal.
Okay.
So there were, I think, 12 or 13 in that
Yes,
squad that
correct.
belonged to Transvaal. And it was kind of put together over time. And it was an interesting bunch of fellows, you know. I mean, they very strong-willed, strong-minded individuals,
Yeah.
and with a lot of South African guts and, you know, you get the right mix of people in a team. You got a sense of listen, if there's a war going to break out, I'm in the trenches with this guy. And that is, and I think that's what is a bit of a differentiator between pure skill in other sports versus that mongrel guts and toughness that you can extract out of a game of rugby, for example. Because if you get into a proper defence mode, you can keep players out and you can turn defence into attack in a sense. And that's been South Africa's model for many years, is not to give an inch.
Yeah.
You know, it's an embarrassment, it's a failure.
Sure,
and,
absolutely.
And you know,
right.
you're scared to walk around town for a week after losing a test match. You know, so
Because Puerto Human's going to be there.
everyone's going to remind you of it. So things obviously have changed significantly to today, where they've changed squads. You know, it was too much of a disgrace to lose a test match. So you always chose your best 15 players, regardless of anything, and so forth. So, the dynamics have changed a lot. But that was the notion. Getting back to your question, you know, we individually probably weren't singled out to win the test match or the final. The bookies, I think, had us down 3-1.
Really?
So, it was surreal in some ways, because reflecting back, it was never an aspect of we were here to fill in a spot.
Yeah.
I mean,
Correct.
we were there with a chance. Regardless of what the newspaper said, regardless of anything else, you know, there was a big drive. I mean, we had a great management staff and coaching staff, and Morno just said, "Look, this is our destiny." You know, I remember in one of the team talks that we had, and you know, the coach believed in us, and that puts a strong sense of pride and not wanting to let the country down at that stage.
Of course,
Yes,
you know, there was a lot of political innuendos going on, and uncertainties,
upheaval,
Correct.
and it was an issue to kind of bring people together and get them focused on something that mattered, and rugby mattered to a lot of people at that stage, and so
The question I wanted to ask you on top of that, did you get pissed after that game in Cape Town on the 25th of May when you beat Australia? Or was it...
First one.
You got pissed, surely.
it was amateur number 1. Number 2, it was a Saturday night. But
It's been a good one.
You know, I was saying to Gino earlier, I remember waking up on that morning, it was the 25th of May, 1995. You're playing Australia. They had Campese, player of the tournament in 91. And when Peter Hendricks went around him, you were there. I mean,
she was.
with respect, I mean, I thought we might have a chance. But that morning I woke up and I thought, geez, I don't think South Africa will win. But you've now told us that your jersey vibrated
Once
and
that
gyrated.
Yeah.
And you said you knew we weren't going to lose this game.
Kitch put a lot of focus on that particular game, because the way the structure happened in terms of the draw and so forth.
Yeah.
The easy route was win the first game,
and
you got a good chance of getting to the semis and final.
Yeah.
So we were very focused in that particular game.
And
it wasn't something that...
Were there lots of team talks or discussions about beating Australia? Did you fear that you may not beat Australia?
Look, I mean, that fear is a little bit... It's a good thing. You know, it jacks you up and it puts you on your toes, you know. You know, we were playing against a world-class backline.
Correct.
That backline, we were all in the previous World Cup final and won it. So they were very experienced and very capable. So it was a tall order, but it was interesting. It wasn't that we ever stood back. We had played them a little bit in Super 10. They weren't
Sure.
superhuman,
Yeah.
which was important from a psyche point of view.
Yes.
And it was, listen, get stuck in, do your bit, and together as a team we'll pull it through. The gears in the team were of such a nature that these guys would have given their arm, for their fellow countrymen and for their teammates at that in that final in particular. So it was that strong.
Yeah, another question. Sorry, just before we get into the comments,
Yeah.
if you don't mind. At what point was it decided who were going to be with respect, the Wednesday sluggers? I think it was against Romania and Canada.
Oh yeah.
And who were going to be the main guys? Was it predetermined, or was it just decided as the tournament went along?
Yeah, look, it was. I think they tried to incorporate everyone as much as they could in terms of inclusion, but there was a general sense. Once the first test was won,
Yeah.
you kind of set your place. So.
Okay. So that's going to be the team.
Yeah,
that's going to be the main
That
side.
team worked.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
it's difficult
Okay,
to
no,
start
it's-
dropping people
Sure.
out of a side that just beat the previous,
Yeah.
previous World Cup champions.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Let's have a
So,
quick look at the
comments.
couple of the comments here. It's the other try first. We'll have a look at the other try first, which is great.
Test colours next weekend. Well, let's hear from the man himself. Nick Farr-Jones is on the touchline with Russell Fairfax. We wait now for Le Roux, though. I said this man loves to run the football. He finally does it, and it's resulted in a try. He's elected to kick on 8 occasions. He's run it with the ball in hand on 7. This is the first time he's taken on the defence, and he scored a magnificent solo try.
Yeah, let's see. Are you going to talk us through that one quickly? Who was the other team?
that was New South Wales. I think.
New South Wales. Okay.
Yeah, so it
For
was
South Africa.
We were on tour in Australia.
Okay.
And so it was one of the midweek games, in fact.
Okay.
Yeah.
What a fantastic
It's good there. You make it, and it's just a bit of the bit of go. Yes, like.
Yeah. No, we like to do things off the base of the scrum because it brought the fly flat and hard and
Okay.
So
if you got a gap, you just went.
yeah, you'll see we you're not allowed to really do that. They changed certain laws at some stage. The front foot broke off early.
Yes.
Became a decoy. Yost came and I had to get my timing right on it.
Okay.
Just created
Shit,
a bit
you
of a
did too.
break and
Yes.
So
you worked on those things as well a lot. There's those sort of structured moves.
Well, I'm a believer that a lot more can be done off tight phases.
Okay.
We should be scoring a lot more tries today off tight phases than ever before because you've got your forwards tucked in, and frankly, they allow a certain degree of obstruction today.
Okay.
And Australia, particularly the ACT Brumbies, have taped. It was unbelievable. They got away with
Professional obstructors.
Jeez, it was so frustrating. But the reality is the law also changed. You're now allowed to pass behind people's back, and unless you've played the sport, you don't quite understand the impact a particular player will have. If you're on the field as a referee, you're not going to pick certain things up.
Yeah.
But as a player running in specific defensive lines, it influences how you run and where you run. You can imagine let's call it your top players now running. They're covering what in a second they're covering 8 meters. So now you get a slight bump or someone runs in front of you. Now that's gone. He's gone.
But tell me a story, if I may ask. Have you never contemplated coaching?
I did, but it remained at contemplating.
Is it that difficult a task?
It's not that difficult, but I think it's there are a number of things. It's personality driven. It's there are a lot of nuances. There's been a lot of changes in how people approach the game and so forth. And I think the aspects related to that potentially I could have contributed in some form or another.
Absolutely.
But life didn't, really take me in that direction. That opportunity never really came about.
There's they're looking for calmer coaches now in the States. I don't know if you. So there might be a team or two looking for coaches with a calmer temperament.
Well, I must tell you, talking about that. I mean, my junior years were at Stilting in Humansdorp.
Oh right, okay, yes.
And we had a coach there, Mr. Paxton. I can remember it, and I left that school.
Was his Christian name Durnford?
Don't know. He was old when we were there.
Yes, sir.
And then, in under 6 and under 7, he used to walk around with a lut. And man, if you walked around this side of the scrum, the whole scrum would move. And if you walked around the other side of the scrum, the whole B team scrum would move. And so his favourite saying was, if you drop the ball, your frot fell. But those were the characters of the time, You would do that and say that. Nowadays, you might probably find that person needs psychiatric treatment after that or psychologist. But the reality is, it was good old times, and kind of everyone accepted and fit into.
Well, I was wondering how Hennie Le Roux came from Grahamstown, which is very English, But I says Humansdorpse kant.
I started there.
Let's have a look at some of the comments here while we're here. Let's check. I see Brian saying it was big friends with your dad and uncle and played rugby for the Albany. Here we go. The Albany guys, eh?
That's Zora. Hello, Zora.
I was laying fullback and pulled a hamstring, and you replaced me. Oh, you were just out of school. Okay, Brian. Well, it's fine. At least we got him. You got him on his thing. Wendy.
Well done. You played a role in giving me the first lift.
You gave him the
first
Wendy.
lift.
Wendy Nelson.
All the way from Nepal.
Nepal, watching from the mountains.
Hello, Wendy.
Excellent.
Good to see you.
Jonathan Miller is saying, Johnny is a muser as well. Old Gramian. There we go. I watched him play on the first team rugby there. Who was in the team, by the way, the Graham College team? Wasn't this?
There was a guy who went to Sailors, I think, who played for Sailors, and maybe EB who played with you.
Did anybody come?
Marcos brothers?
There you
Marcos
go.
Brothers,
There you go.
Did they come with you? Some of your first team players back in.
Yeah, Craig Marco was the fullback, and Tony was the scrum half, and they both played provincial rugby after school. So
Wasn't Nick Mallet a Graham?
There was David Walters as well.
Oh, yes.
David Walters played for
Correct.
Zimbabwe.
Okay.
And so forth. So
Were you fly off at school?
I was fly off at school.
Okay.
At the time, yeah.
We're going to come to that as well. I've got a question for you.
But so Nick Mallet was St Andrews. Was he older or younger than you?
No, he's a little bit older.
Quite a lot older than me.
I can't. Back then, I can't figure out
very
who was
old.
where.
Garth Webster.
Garth Webster. He still looks.
Garth, you're quite right.
You're absolutely right.
You're quite right.
Says my wife. He
No,
says, "Oh, there we go."
I told you earlier. I told him earlier. He looks very good.
We expect a rugby chirp. He writes these things in Main Road Warmer. If you're writing,
Stu, how are you? There's Stu Potgieter.
he's always got a signboard in Main Road Warmer with some funny chirp on it. So maybe it'll be rugby tomorrow. How's about that, Garth Webster? He said, Mike and Eddie listening from the UAE. He said, I think that's from USA. Stuart, yes, of course. Stuart always pops in from the US.
From the USA, yeah.
And I think Sean Thompson's also watching from Santa Barbara.
I think he's sleeping. He's on the other side of
the other
it.
side.
He's on the other side.
Oh man! But so I want to know that moment. Because everybody talks about that. There's that always on shown on TV the drop kick. We standing right next to then to Stransky. What was the mood like there? I mean, it must have been like sweating blood.
Yeah, it was. We were on the wrong side of the field.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to him, Joel, this one's up to you. And
must put some more pressure on.
Do you think he heard you?
yeah. And he decided to take the drop goal, and I mean, luckily Bishop at that stage, who was the scrum off for the New Zealand side, if he had just gone straight for fly off, which is the normal defence pattern, he tried to block Joost's pass, and that gave Joel time to put the drop over. So that was
it's that close. So it's just
that close.
No,
it's
listen,
like golf.
I
It's
mean,
millimeters.
to have been part of something like that must be.
Danny, imagine if you hadn't taken a drop, you would have got the ball. Then,
Well, would you?
Might have just passed it back.
pass it straight back.
We found it. Well, I didn't give them to Gary, but we found a few clips of you drop kicking today when you played fly for EP and the Lions
Okay.
or Transvaal.
Did you take? So your kickings? Did you use it?
I used to kick for Eastern Province quite a bit, but I picked up a couple of injuries, and particularly that affected my kicking when I went up north.
Okay.
But I had a reasonable scoreline for Eastern Province, I think. So it was kicking. I was probably not the longest or furthest kicker when it goes for poles or touch.
Yeah.
And I was kind of slugging away and trying to be accurate.
But now tell me, when you moved to the Transvaal, did you think that you could become a Springbok, or would become a Springbok?
No, that you remain working at that until you actually don the green and gold. It's work in progress.
I would assume it was an aim of yours or an ambition of yours, eh?
Absolute ambition. Yeah, I mean, I was sold into getting the best possible rugby accolades I could, and I was fortunate that I could study and go and do various things, which gave me the time to put extra time.
What did you study when you at UPE?
I did human movement science.
Okay.
And then I went up and did my sports management degree.
Okay. So you went in sport. You went into sports then as
went
well.
into sport, but never really used.
Didn't use that.
A day of it, other than probably the Players Association. So
Isn't it amazing?
so it's crazy.
Yeah, and then so sort of after World Cup '95, or it was still did you still have a when did you play until when did you actually retire from?
Retired in 2000.
2000. So you have another good 5 years to go after that.
Yeah. Look, I mean, people say, why you retire? It's because you're in pain.
Yeah.
It's simple as this. You'll know it yourself. So you're in pain.
Okay.
You
Just
end
injuries.
up. It's Saturday night, and you end up only recovering by Wednesday, Thursday. And as you get older, it becomes your recovery just takes so much longer.
And Hennie, if I may ask, are you talking about serious pain here? Is it painful to get out of bed? Is it sorry? Is it painful to get out of bed? Is it painful?
No. It's just things that one would normally do. In fact, I would never have played in the '95 World Cup if it wasn't for a guy by the name of Ron Holder.
I remember that.
He built wedges out of yellow pages.
Yes, I know the story. Yeah.
And
amazing.
while I was at Transvaal, I had Hippie Nell actually ran behind me here for a B game, Eastern Province versus Northern Transvaal, and he fell with his knees into my back, and I lost half the use of my glute muscle, so I had an imbalance, and I was probably out for a good 6 months that year as well. But every time I went up and I was kind of pushing myself 95, 100%, I'd pull a little hammy or I'd do something, and I went through an injury period for a while.
Yeah.
And it was immensely frustrating, and eventually I met up with this a friend of mine introduced me to Ron Holder, who had 3 doctorate degrees, and one was in applied kinesiology. And he did people like Bruce Fordyce, Ilana Meyer, Roger Black in the UK, looked after teams there. A really special skill, and I went to him, and he gave me a wedge, and this is all very Greek and foreign to me. And he said, look, you'll wear that down and come back to me next week. And I went back to him next week, and he tested me again, and the wedge wasn't coming down. And the wedge, you're meant to take 5 pages out.
Yeah.
The pain kind of moves down your leg, and then it kind of moves out of your body. If you've got a injury that's not a permanent injury,
How does this
because
work
you get a
now?
bump.
Wedge, you take, it's like the yellow pages.
Yeah.
You're talking about yellow, when you put it on your shoe, or
Yeah, well,
On your heel.
put it in your heel.
Yeah.
Oh, you still got one?
it's a stinky old
Yeah.
shoe, but that's what it is. And I've been wearing this for 30 years.
Oh, my soul.
And I can't play 9 goals golf without putting the wedge
Yeah.
in, you know.
Yeah, there we go. There's
so-
a secret for you guys.
So,
Very
and that
interesting.
came from a permanent injury that I had here.
Yeah.
And whenever I played with that particular wedge, I never ever had a problem.
Was it
Yeah,
essentially?
I played once without it and pulled my hammy.
Was
Yeah,
it
so-
essentially one leg maybe a bit shorter than the other, or vice versa, longer than the other?
I didn't
Just the
really
way
have
you-
that. It was the imbalance in terms of how your muscles function and your neurons in terms of.
Okay.
So if your neurons are firing but they've been blocked in one particular area, and your muscles aren't functioning optimally, then you're not in balance. And if you're not in balance, you
Yeah.
run the risk of getting injured.
Yes.
And what made him probably 30 years ahead of everyone else is he was in the preventative treatment.
Yeah.
You know, historically we all went into physio post an injury.
Yes.
He could assess you before you actually got injured,
Yeah.
make the alignment right so you never got injured.
I
And
understand
here's the
that.
story. Yappie Mulder, Chester Williams and Franshaw in those 2 weeks training session all had hammies. We brought him in, we sorted them out, and we didn't have one muscle tear in the entire World Cup. So, you know,
Incredible.
he, there's no question that he made a huge impact on that side. But traditional medicine, you know, ostracized him. They didn't want to believe in him. It's not scientific and so forth. So it was very frustrating. I tried to get him to a number of areas and so forth. And, you know, there was always this resistance to include him in the medical field and so forth.
Yeah.
But he's treated so many people and he's had so much success. You know, you can go and speak to the likes of Bruce Fordyce.
Yeah.
And then he'll tell you the same thing.
And many
So
cricketers as
You
well.
say Lana Meyer, was she the hickeys?
she was the long distance.
That's long, no, she was long
But
distance.
tell me, you talk about your mate there who played outside you in the World Cup final. And in that World Cup, Yappie Mulder.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that tackle he put in on Jonah.
Jonah, yeah. Look, I mean, if there were ever two important tackles, it was Justus on Jonah and Yappie's. I mean, those were
Correct.
really match-saving tackles, and
Do you have to get hold of Jonah at any stage, or at least be in front of him?
He was the general. He conducted the traffic.
Take him out.
Yappie.
Okay, he's coming. He's coming. Did you ever go?
I think he took about 4 side steps, so he was going about 10 k's an hour, and I got him from behind. Can't tell him.
Excellent.
I want to ask you as well. You're obviously in contact with all your mates, yeah?
We still all on a WhatsApp group.
Okay,
you know,
fantastic.
and still share some.
And
some
where's
experiences.
Yappie Mulder these days? Because he always seemed to be such a happy oak. He always had a smile.
Yeah.
Jeez, he could tackle that.
No, he could tackle. He had the right mindset for tackling. So, but,
Where is he today?
he's up in Johannesburg. I think he's working in the telecom space.
Mhm.
In the towers, tower and telecom space. Yeah.
Lekker.
And then just going back, because you guys keep wanting to go off this World Cup, and I
Yeah,
keep
yeah.
wanting to go back to it.
He wants to, yeah.
So just for what it's worth, you've beaten Australia. You then came up against Romania, did you not? And the guys in the squad played. I think they beat them 20-0, did they not?
Yeah, it was a lot closer than we had hoped, but you know it was difficult coming off such a high, and the team changed quite a bit
Yes.
as well, and so we kind of limped through that one. I think I might even have scored a try or something, but
I don't think you played in that
it was
game, did
20.
you?
Yeah, I did.
Did you? Against Romania?
Yeah,
So you
I
played
played
against
fly
us?
off against Romania.
Oh, I see. I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
So you played against Australia, and then the next game against Romania.
Yeah.
You know what I
And then
vividly...
it came to
Yeah, the boot.
the boot.
We came down, we were here. The lights went out. Jesus, James was swinging.
James Small.
Tell us a story, you know. That was, I think, just before you were very close to qualifying then. And now suddenly, James gets a red card and he's out of the tournament.
Yeah.
What is the mood like in the changing room after that?
Well, I mean, we lost Peter and James in that incident.
Quite correct. In fact, I forgot about Peter Hendricks.
Yeah. So that was, that was a big, that was a blow in terms of the team. There was a bit of, frustration surrounding how it was dealt with and so forth.
Okay.
I remained as quiet as I.
What in the changing room afterwards?
Yeah, look, I mean, the Romanian game was something different, but the Canadian game was something different. Yeah, there were one or two things that they came out almost with a purposeful attitude
aggression.
to see what they could do. When you play ice hockey, they bring someone onto the field that purposefully causes a fight to upset the momentum in a game. And I just remember, because I came onto the field in that Canada game as a reserve off the stand. I'd kind of had watched what was going on, and he just seemed so purposeful in everything that he did. Okay. Knee and a hit and a bump off the ball.
Antagonizing.
So by the time I got onto the field, I was seething because I'd seen everything.
Yes.
And then started understanding.
Who was the Canadian player that was?
He was wasn't the hooker? Was it Swan or? I remember the guy he tore in there. It was in the corner down the bottom.
Okay.
The name will come to me.
Yeah. He gave. I think hit Peter Hendricks with the elbow on the back of the head. And then James came in. I think James was I don't know if he really even threw a punch. But because he was second in, the referee made an example of him. But while they were busy doing all that, there was another incident going on, which we're not going to go into.
Oh dear.
So basically, he got sent, and he's now out of the World Cup final.
Yeah.
So suspension, eh?
Yeah. Look, if you get a red card in the World Cup, in that time it's over.
Okay.
Doesn't matter how many games. Remember how it worked.
3 games or anything.
I couldn't quite remember how it worked. So he's gone,
Yeah.
and you bring in Chris Murray.
Rousseau.
Chris Rousseau, I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Narkodrowski, I think, came up from.
Was Chris with you in that squad?
Chris was with us in that squad at that time. Yeah.
Okay, so you've now qualified. You beat them, was it 20-0 or whatever?
Yeah.
20-0.
Yeah, and then it was France, the swimming pool game in Durban.
Tell us about that.
So it was very.
Tell us about that game,
Yeah,
because I'll never forget that. Was his name Olivier Rouma?
Benazzi.
The guy in 95 in the swimming pool there at Kings Park.
Yes, sir.
There was that controversial.
Yeah. So I was there.
Tell me
I
the
was
story.
there.
Were you on the field?
I was on the field.
Explain it now, because I can't remember it all.
We're filing through
Yeah.
the stages of this game.
Yeah. So at
because
that stage there was obviously we didn't like the wet conditions, and it played into the French hands quite a bit because they're used to the wet.
Yeah.
And the last 10 minutes they were putting huge amount of pressure on us in our 22. And it was all about not giving penalties away and not letting tackles slip. And the pressure was on, and they eventually, put it up and under up. And I think there was a drop ball, or someone broke through, and James Small managed to tackle someone, but he had broken through. And then there were 2 others, and he kind of dived for the line, and he had kind of stopped, and he tried to push the ball. And if you go into that clip from behind, you can actually see, people diving in. And being a midget, I was happy to scrounge on the ground there. And so I had sight of it, and he was an inch or 2 short of the line. He definitely was. So,
Olivier Rouma.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was a fair call.
Yeah.
And did
It's a fair call.
and they stopped it.
I could very easily say it was a try now because nothing's going to change.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely.
But in that instance, it was short round.
But now, Henny, that red card with James with James Dalton, would have had some impact on that game against France, would it have?
Very, very much so.
Yeah.
Had the game not been played because
That's right. Thank you.
of the rain,
Yes.
and they were kind of had people on the field with brooms and just trying to brush all the water off the field, and had the game not taken place because they delayed it by an hour.
Correct.
And had the game not taken place, then
That red card would have counted against you.
The red card would have counted against us, and we wouldn't have gone through to the final.
Oh,
So hats off to
right.
the hats off to the French who said, listen, the game.
It must go on,
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, hats off to them, and that really then.
Yes.
And that was a semi-final, was it not?
And that was the semi-final.
Gee, you was
So let me understand now. That was the following Saturday. You're back in Joburg with the final.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
The nerves and the tension and the pressure.
Yeah, I think in some degrees, we had kind of achieved what a lot of people possibly thought we wouldn't achieve.
Mm.
And then it was a question of, getting to understand after having watched New Zealand annihilate England.
Shame.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
so even
Michael
go there.
Cat.
And then
Let's
it
even
was-
go there.
Yeah, and then it was a question of kind of refocus the team's, strengths. And there was a master stroke by Kitch
Yeah.
Yeah.
in shifting the accountability on a Friday night before the final.
In what way?
Well, he all the training had done, everything had been done, and he had always sort of lobbed this thought the whole time of what he would call a brains game. The brains game is we'd all kind of switch on and start doing clever things at a high pace.
Yeah.
But that wasn't really the South African way of doing things in those days. So on Friday night, 8 o'clock, team meeting in his suite, and he comes to us and he says, okay, listen, he thinks we must possibly change the game plan. and one of the players said, Coach, I think we're pretty comfortable the way we're playing at the moment. It's got us here.
Yeah.
Should we not kind of stick it out?
The voice of reason.
Yeah. Sure.
And he looked around, and I still don't know because I never asked him, and I shouldn't. Was that a ploy or not? To kind of get us thinking. There was a little 2-minute discussion. It wasn't very long, and he said, "Okay, let's put it to vote. What do you guys think? Are we going to stay the way we are?" And we all said unanimously, he said, "We're going to play the game plan we know."
Yeah.
And he said, "Go out there and win,
So
win it for the
nothing
country."
changed.
Okay, so
nothing
actually,
changed.
Nothing changed, but it was an awareness probably that he brought in, but also an accountability thing.
Yeah.
Now we had determined
yes. How are you going to play?
how we're going to play.
Yes.
So we had to either believe in the game plan, and as a result of that,
Yes.
we had to take accountability and responsibility.
Sure.
We couldn't turn around and say, "Oh, it was his fault or that's fault or it changed in this." And so
Was it unanimous? So
Yeah.
it
no,
was
it's
okay.
not.
And tell me now.
Not like one oak, like
Tell me
oh,
now.
it changed.
I know it's history, but so now it's a Friday night. Laurie Mains claims that he gets poisoned by Susie.
Yeah.
Is that bullshit?
Who's Susie? Who was Susie?
Oh, who knows?
Susie was, from what we heard, Susie was a lady working in the kitchen, and there was something put in the tea or something. But, I'm not, stories surfaced afterwards, and there was also, some of the All Blacks said they also went for a walk in the morning, and a good couple of them ate from a street vendor somewhere, and so. I don't.
Around Ellis Park.
I don't know. What? Well, that was in the morning.
Bad
you know,
child
so,
or something.
Um,
Curry
and,
bunny.
you know,
Don't wanna
it's a
put you on the
difficult
spot.
one. I can't comment. I wasn't, you know, part of that. So
Yeah.
So
Okay, so you're in the final. How did you sleep on the Friday night?
it was
Did you sleep
difficult.
well?
It is difficult. It was
I'll sleep
difficult.
well.
But to give credit to the coaching staff, you know, you had got to that point. You're not going to get fitter, you know, in a
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
Your biggest challenge is conserving energy,
Sure.
because the anxiety and the stress is eats your energy.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
you'll know you can,
Yeah,
it can
absolutely.
finish you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the when you've reached that point, those last 2-3 days is a mental thing.
Yeah.
You got to start adjusting how you think, and you got to say, okay, look, you know, all the hard work's been done. You can't do anything different, but you got to don't stress about issues, discuss things, come to
Sure.
agreement, whatever the case is, but don't let anxiety tap your energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is difficult, I imagine.
yeah.
I mean, did you actually sleep properly or well?
It
night
wasn't
before the
you know,
final?
it wasn't a great sleep, but there was a conscious attempt at not thinking about the game when we
Yeah.
had to switch off.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, when it came to discussing certain things, you'd switch on, but there was a conscious
Yeah.
requirement to switch off and not focus on things and think about the game for, you know, 24, 48
Too long,
hours
yeah.
before, you know.
Yeah.
So that was I think also a good strategy.
And any Kitch Christie as a coach, I mean, he must have been a fantastic man.
Oh, he's a wonderful man. You know, he was a disciplinarian. He kind of knew what he wanted. He garnered information from other people. He knew what his strengths and his weaknesses,
Yeah.
you know, were, and he filled those with the right people. In the old days, you know, people used to laugh and say a coach was something that you arrived at the field in.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was so enjoying this conversation.
But
because
the coach, you know, a good coach would he would bring the right people in for where it was needed, and that's the skill of a coach. But you know, gridiron and football
Yeah.
don't use the word coach. It was a manager, and the
Okay.
manager has
Yeah.
coaches
Yeah.
who
Yes.
coach particular set of skills. I mean, Kitch
Yeah.
couldn't teach me anything about fly half play. He was a lock or a flank in his day.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you know, one has to accept that other skill sets are
Okay.
required and other inputs are needed. But
Yeah.
from a strategy point of view, he would come up and say, look, I think this is what we should do. And, you know, he'd always say attack the left-hand side of the field where you can in terms of your kicks, because you're like, from a line-out jumping point of view,
Yeah.
your line-out jumpers are stronger with their right hand than with their left hand.
Okay.
Very good.
So little
Yeah.
things like
Tips,
that
yeah,
would be
yeah.
identified and
Yeah.
and you know they try and exploit those little things. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, but I mean that 95 thing is also it's burnt into our memory. So
Absolutely. I mean, it's the greatest, well,
Yeah.
without a doubt,
yeah,
one of South Africa's greatest ever sporting moments.
yeah.
The greatest sporting ever moment.
Yeah.
And were you on the field when the Boeing came over?
We were in the changing room.
Did you know it was coming over?
No,
No.
no idea at all. In fact, there was a rumbling
ground bar
sound,
break.
and
No, it was really like the plane came over the thing, and it was. Seeing that you missed it, we were there. We would check that. It was quite lucky that.
And Francois as a captain,
Yeah.
obviously a serious, okay?
yeah, right man, right time.
Yeah.
You know, for the job. It was a difficult group of players. Make no error. There were some strong-minded, strong-willed guys in that side. You know, and
I'm sure.
and to keep them aligned but give them sufficient you know, space to exchange thoughts and,
Yeah,
and
they have to have
and
buy-in.
feel that they are participating in the decision making process and so forth.
Yeah.
You know, so you need someone who can manage those aspects as well. And Francois was clever in also understanding what his strengths were, similar to from a coaching point of view. You know, again, he couldn't tell backline players what to do and what not to do, so that remained in our kind of camp, and that's how we had to manage, you know. And I mean, that the defensive plan in particular was an issue after New Zealand England going the game, and you know, just it was weird because at that stage, you know, we were watching the game together, and most of the other people that were given time off, but I decided to stay at the hotel, and you know, he had just seen that smashing, and he just said, "Look, we've got to do something here." And so we went in and we analysed Jonah, and you know, what a player, and
sure.
But like everyone in life, we all have our strengths and weaknesses. And you know, you look at him and you think, well, where are the weaknesses?
But I didn't see any there.
But the interesting thing was that so his strengths really revolved around his size and momentum,
of course,
and his handle. I mean, his arm was as long as most people's legs.
Really,
So you couldn't get close to him.
Yes.
So, and then there was the element of being unsighted. In analysing the videos, you started picking up that if the ball was kicked behind him and he was running, and he heard footsteps coming close to him, he got unnerved.
Okay.
He was a little jittery.
Really?
So you picked up these things, and we then put it into a defensive plan where we put James Small on his outside, and use the same defense pattern from the inside out, but James on his outside. Now you can imagine Jonah Lomo is where I am, and you are James Small. Now I'm receiving the ball from Gino here. Now, how do I receive the ball? I have to put both hands up.
Yes, you got to look that way.
I have to look that way.
Yeah.
So now you're unsighted. Now you don't know when you're going to get hit.
So James is stomping.
And you know, you can't hand off.
Yes.
So you can't use his handoff arm.
Yeah.
He has to get around someone to be able to use his handoff arm.
Yeah.
So we can't find his space from the outside inward.
Okay.
And in doing so, we also forced him to sidestep every time, because there were people on his outside.
Yeah.
And every time you sidestep, you lose speed.
Yeah.
And that gave the big boys on the inside their slow pace and opportunity to punch.
Get in.
You know, they could at least get their hands on him.
Yeah.
So that was the idea.
So James had to be
around
like the sheepdog around
yeah,
there.
he had to be on the outside, you know, forcing him kind of half back in.
And fantastic way of describing it. I mean, as people in the grandstand or the general public,
we'd never know that.
You would never know that.
No,
in fact, I think, you know, the way I'm looking at how they defend, because Jonah never ever scored against South Africa, and that we employed that tactic from that day.
Yes.
And I have a sense of, and I may be wrong, but the defence pattern they employ today is very similar to what we had.
Yeah.
So it's something that has lasted quite a long time, and it's interesting that they haven't exploited that yet, because there are ways of exploiting that if you know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And watch out in this next World Cup. I think by then they must have, because it's 30 years on.
Well, just another interesting thing here. I mean, who actually devised this plan? Was it Kitch?
No, Kitch asked me to go and work something out.
Yeah.
So hence the name the General.
Yes,
the General.
The General, is it?
We sort of you were called the General.
And Jonah, he married a South African girl, didn't he?
I don't think so.
Wasn't he married?
Look, I still need to get the. Yeah, he did.
I think he did.
Married
Because she's trying to. He was even married a girl, trying to get this what the story was, and then he still didn't get it.
What, a school trial against South Africa?
No, he was still trying to find out what our secret was, that he couldn't score against us.
I didn't know that. But listen,
No, I'm joking.
You saw him at close quarters. He was a massive.
He's a big
tank.
boy.
And then Haka. In
Yeah,
that
look,
final,
I mean,
that was the goosebumps. And
Yeah.
Well,
Look,
that's
it always is. You know, the boys are. That's their commitment. You know, that's their. It's either they're making a fool of themselves, and lose.
Do the All Blacks.
Yeah.
or-
Yeah, I mean, if you do the haka and you lose, it's an embarrassment.
Yeah,
Let's face
sure,
it.
sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's a big show,
Yeah.
and to put up a show, you've got to be saying, listen, I'm standing by what I'm portraying here.
Yeah.
It's a challenge, and
Is it?
And Henny and I,
So-
you sit as a,
Bakkies
you sit as
is-
a great back,
Yeah.
but you've got these forwards like Cobus Visser, Mark Andrews. I mean, Jesus.
and we wrote Quibus to stand in front of him and
In front of Jonah.
down.
But and there was that story where apparently Jonah couldn't look him in the eye. Is that correct?
Well,
Sounds
like
like-
I said, I mean, Jonah had great things, but he was actually a soft heart.
Oh, really?
He wasn't an abrasive type of
Yeah.
individual. He was
Okay,
a
well,
very
that's a good way of
very
summing it up.
very accommodating, nice type of guy.
Yeah.
And I think, and he was pretty young at that stage too.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
they're impressionable. You can,
Yes.
and it's kind of measuring the right people off against each other and psychologically getting them to understand it's not going to be all.
Kind of guy
No,
that would
that's-
apologise to my cat after.
Now, my last question, and thank you, you've given me a good insight into what you went through in '95, and it's an honour to have sat with
Not
you and
at all.
discussed this. But
Yeah.
what did you not do on the Saturday night? Did you just get in your car and go home, or? I want to know this because I've also been in a little team here that won a trophy. Or two. There was no getting into your car and going home.
No. Look, I mean, there was so much going on in around, and I mean, there were people in the streets. They, were
Jesus.
blocking
And,
the bus, and
Yeah.
we ended up, I think, nearly being an hour late for the official function,
Really?
which wasn't a.
She just couldn't get there.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
wasn't
no,
a. It wasn't
He's
a.
right in what he says. I mean, I remember Call It Drive where we eventually ended up.
It was
The
yeah,
bar
but
tables were on the street.
it wasn't a great display of diplomacy in the sense that we arrived there late, and Louis late then goes and hands a watch to the referee for refereeing the game.
Derek, what's that, Derek? What's the left foot, Derek?
So the All Blacks jumped on that as well. Anyway,
They give him the watch after the game or before the game.
I think it was after. What he promised him before, I don't know. I'm only kidding.
The Welshman was it not Derek? I can't remember his surname.
Yeah, Bevan.
Derek Bevan, you're quite right.
Yeah.
You got to
So
watch.
yeah, I mean, and then goodness, by the time we got out of there, it was probably up past 12:01. Where do you go in Joburg in the 90s at 1 o'clock? Most of the places are
You guys could
closed.
have gone to Los Angeles if you liked.
So yeah, I mean, everyone post that, I think there was a big desire to either meet up with family, but in most instances, family were heading off to bed at that stage.
Yes,
But,
Of course, yeah.
3 o'clock in the morning.
those,
Were you married then?
No,
Not?
I got married very late in my life.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, so I think we ended up at the Clay Oven and the Rattlesnake Diner and all
my
sorts
word.
of weird places. But I managed to get into the hotel just in time to have breakfast. And
And now you've got a son who is that Graham, correct?
Oh, what's your family? What if you got? Let's get into your just a few questions before we've had you here for an hour. Hour and a half here already. We're going strong.
If you don't mind, I also want to talk about Simon de Robillard,
Okay, that's something.
who's actually the manufacturer.
Oh
of the
yeah,
shirt.
we'll do this as well.
Simon. Hello.
Is he do the instinct shirts as well?
Correct,
Okay.
for Sean, yeah.
Oh, lovely, Simon. Thank you. Oh, lekker. Is he on there as well?
He's certainly watching.
Okay, oh, lovely. So just to complete the thing. I mean, everybody said like 95, and then that was it. That was the end of your rugby career. Finished.
No.
You obviously
Yeah.
played on.
so yeah, I mean, we had quite a bit of success, I think, in '96, and then we won the Currie Cup again in '99
Okay.
for Transvaal at that
Transvaal
stage.
too,
And,
okay.
so under Laurie Mains, funnily enough.
Okay.
So,
It's okay.
Can you meet Susie again?
That's Susie. Yeah.
so
He got his cooking right.
so,
by then.
yeah, but in fact, we got on quite well,
Okay.
Laurie and I, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Post.
Solid man.
Yeah. Well, I've got a couple of interesting questions that we can hit you with. It's a getting to know you session. You want and also what's happening in your life at the moment. Your businesses, your things you're doing. I mean, you've got I just popped into the LinkedIn page. A quick squiz there. It's like safari stuff going on. You've got you're buying and selling from overseas. You're seeing Chinese businessmen. I mean, what is this? It's not rhino horns.
Not at this stage.
Okay, good. No, I'm glad. Yeah, because we don't like those.
No, the interesting thing about rhino horns, and that's a complete different discussion. We need to find a solution to that.
Yeah,
and,
quite for sure.
It's friends of ours just down the road from my farm have just lost 2 rhino through that in Sibuya Game Reserve. So it's a constant it's a constant issue, and we need to find new ways of addressing that. So I love nature, I love conservation. So I've got a little game farm. We do accommodation, we do hunting and stuff like that. The hunting forms part of conservation, in my view. We put fences up. You've got to manage, otherwise the habitat goes. So there are a lot of those kind of aspects. But I'm not full time involved there. I've got a manager looking after the place. And and then we had a franchise that looks after sub-Saharan Africa in the auctioning business.
Is that Apex?
That's Apex.
Okay.
So one of the saddest things I've done, besides we do mining and big industrial type of things, was the closing down of Cobra taps and Vol sanitary ware. We've all used those taps.
Vol. How many times haven't you peed into a Vol?
Yeah.
They're gone now.
Closed down. Yeah.
Wow.
So Cobra is importing and through their brand. So that's probably one of the more sadder, and it is quite a big auction. I think they had 1,100 items, big items.
Wow.
So so that was
mining as well. I mean, we're talking about
redundancy on
crushers
mines and things like that. Yeah, yellow machinery,
JCBs and that sort of thing. Okay.
But that's changed quite a bit, and there's a requirement for all sorts of demographic changes and so forth there too. And I was very fortunate to find some eloquent Chinese friends who were educated in the States.
Okay.
And have and the lady in particular is very influential into the state of China.
Wow.
So it gives us access into large corporates and state-owned entities. So if there's large scale buying, they can source just about anything that you want. So we've got that access. Which is great.
Just for what it's worth, these people you deal with, am I right in saying the Chinese, it's money up front, no terms? Or are there terms here?
You depending on who the company is, terms are offered. Depending, I mean, if you're a listed company and you're dealing with a state-owned there, you can get terms. That's not a problem. It's they do a proper DD on the company, but their scope is so broad. I mean, we just cannot supply what they want. If it's magnetite, lithium, it's just huge amounts of. So commodity-wise, yes, and then obviously from here.
I wanted to ask you, what
right
do you send
across,
from here to there?
I mean, we're sending some nuts across there now.
And macadamia.
Macadamia nuts.
That's big,
There's all sorts of things that, if you're looking for a huge market to sell something at a the Chinese they don't overpay for things either. So margins are thin, but they'll take volumes that we can't supply.
Yes.
So that's the benefit going that way. And then coming this way is knowing that you're getting the right goods, because there's always this mentality, and I think South Africans in some instances have been burnt with quality issues. But if you're dealing with those state-owned companies, there's a requirement to maintain a certain warranty level and all of that.
On a light-hearted note,
yes,
I saw the other day on News 24 that there's a dearth of cockroaches in South Africa. I remember going to China and staying at a 5-star hotel, and they were bringing these plates in South Africa like peanuts.
Cockroaches.
Eating his cockroaches. So there's an opportunity.
Oh, there we go.
Get rid of those.
Export some of them.
Oh, no, then he got sick.
Yeah.
I promise you.
Yeah,
Like,
look-
eating them like peanuts.
No, look, and I think it's very much about who you involved with. Now, both my
Sure.
parties that I engage with and that have access were kind of schooled and educated in the US.
Yeah.
Well, the lady was at the MIT in China, but Dominic, who's my kind of right hand man, there was educated in the US from 13.
Westernized.
So he's properly westernized, and he shares, our and I think, for any aspiring people that wanting to export and get the right context, that is so critical as part of the business, because you need to trust the people you
People
deal
that
with.
understand.
Otherwise, you can get taken for a
Yeah,
ride.
it's the whole. It's not only the language barrier. It's the whole cultural barrier. Everything has got to work together.
Yeah, and the cultural barriers there are. If you don't have someone westernized that has the trust of both sides, it's a difficult play.
Well, in fact, to expand on what you're saying, I remember coming on the show in January last year and telling you, when you asked me, we deal with the Chinese, and Jesus, there's some of us you can't trust there.
Yeah.
But it's going to be from both sides. There's going to be a thing. So you're right to have that intermediary where you can speak to each other and not offend each other. Another thing, there's always this the cultural thing is so difficult. In the different sides of the world.
Yeah.
But and I think we've kept you an hour and a half.
No,
Yeah, we
I
can't
was
take
asking
any
you
longer.
now.
It's been good fun.
But yes.
Yeah.
How are you going with your brother-in-law there, Peter Dubs?
Yeah,
What I love
Peter
Ham.
is a great guy. I mean, we probably had
Fantastic
the best business relationship, in the early days, and it was great to have him up in Joburg.
Solid
and be
as a
involved
mountain,
in-
that fellow.
Yeah, as a solid boy, and
Yeah.
got great respect for him. You really do,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And do you see much of him?
Well, we've just come down, so been there
Okay.
2 or 3 times, running around mostly, but I have seen him, and we don't touch base as much as we should, but we intend to down the line. I'm sure things will settle down and spend some more time together.
Yeah.
Okay.
And your little guy? He's at Grey, is he not?
He's at Grey here.
One child.
Got
One
a little
son.
11-year-old and a 13-year-old.
Oh, two boys, 11 and 13.
No, a girl and a boy. So
Oh,
very
two
blessed.
girls.
Very blessed.
Son.
Pigeon pair.
Pigeon pair, yeah.
Is he a flower, a centre, a lock, a prop?
Is he
I
going
think
that
he's
way?
going to be more in your game. Yeah.
Is it cricket? Is he not into music or something?
He's an aspiring leg spinner.
Oh,
Jeez.
Yeah.
there we go.
I can't help him.
No, you can't help him, but in your game you
As
can
much as
maybe.
I'd like to help him. I couldn't even understand that guy.
Yeah, but you might have been a quickie, but there's always something that in the cricketing etiquette that you can pass on.
No, absolutely.
Here we go.
And believe me, we'll bring the mob in there and we'll help the Oak. I've got Striker straight away around
When
the
he
corner
says
there.
when he says the mob,
No,
we already talking.
believe me when I tell you, we often get calls from parents,
yes.
and I always rope Striker in, or I've roped
Okay,
Striker
yes,
in the
yes.
past.
Yeah.
And shame, I'll never forget the story. When we lived in East London in the 90s, when I was in the corporate world, moving up the coast here, ended up in Durban,
Yeah.
a guy phoned me up and he said, would you mind coming and have a look at my boy here?
Yeah.
So I said, well, what does he do? He said, no, he's a good fast bowler.
Quickie. Okay.
So I got Kenny Watson involved.
Yeah.
And, it's a horrible thing to say, but after watching the guy bowl 3 or 4 balls, Kenny Watson sauntered over, he said, ask him if he's got a tennis racket. You've got to be brutally honest with you.
So don't call bias. He's not going to do any good.
And you know what? It's a sad reality. It's like Simon Cowell often says.
Yeah.
The parents deceive the kids.
Well, you listen to the story of Shane Warne.
Jesus.
There you go. At
100%.
what is it? At 17, 18, someone said,
100%.
"Listen, you're not going to make the game at footy, chum.
Correct.
Get out and start playing something else."
Oh,
and
really?
he becomes the world best, one of the
best
world
spinner.
best
100%.
spinner. So the sooner you can specialize, the better. So this world has become very soft, and in the sense that they don't want to upset this one. Don't.
Yes.
You know what? Get stuck in and grind it out, and do what you need to do, and be told. I'd rather get the facts in my face than
Correct.
hear it somewhere else 3 years later after wasting a lot of time.
You know
and
what?
money, so.
You know what? I'll tell you what. We could have another hour and a half here about honesty, from coaches.
Yeah.
And anyway,
Yeah.
I wanted to say this to you. If your son wants to learn how to get a 70 in 10 balls, you phone
You're the
me.
man.
You're the SS
And I'm
Jumbo.
sure Dumpy Ann will endorse that. And he doesn't play rugby.
He does, but he's maturing slowly on the rugby field.
Oh, good.
It's
Well,
All right.
you alluded to the fact that you also matured slowly. Under 20C,
You know.
and not long after the Springbok. You
well,
you never know.
there
You
we go,
never
there we
know.
go. We have blimps in our lives.
But any help he needs, he's at Grade Junior. Eh?
Yeah, and wonderful. I'm very, very blessed. Two
You gave
wonderful
on the
kids.
weekend, big festival.
Yeah, we'll probably we'll go and have a look and juggle that between that and the farm.
No, listen,
And the farm too, and the trying to get a bit of balance too. There we go. Is it? Lekker. It's been fantastic to have you
What
on the
about the rest of
show.
the comments?
Oh, we got a couple of comments. I think Jonas scored. Oh, there we go. What's it? Thank you for a show filled with magnificent rugby memories. Thank you, Brian Wilkinson. No, yeah, for sure. It's a pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure, Brian. And Garth, the only time Jonas scored against SA was with his wife from Kimberley. There we go. He's a wife from Kimberley. He was trying to find out the secret of why he couldn't score. That's the whole thing. I think that talking to each other nicely in the comments as well. Here we go. Sitting behind the poles. There we go. Perfect angle at Ellis Park when Joel struck the ball. What a magic moment. Party afterwards, Rosebank. New Year in June. That's it. There was what? The players might drown. She was
Yeah,
Jeez, oh, so he's lucky. He was there probably with his fancy pants. He's a good snappy dresser.
dresser.
Yeah, absolutely. But fantastic to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your time. Absolute honour to have you here as well. One of our rugby heroes. Yes.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much
Great
for
to
the
see
invite.
you.
Fantastic. Thank you to our sponsors, Spa, and tonight Instinct as well. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, in fact, Simon de Romelard actually makes the kit.
Yes, he does.
O2 Clothing in Durban. We'll talk about that on the next show.
We're absolutely
Hopefully
getting it
with
down.
Zola Butt.
Oh, it's Zola Bud.
Hopefully.
We're going to try and get Zola Bud on the show as
Come
well.
talk to us all. Come as
She
well.
might even know on older.
Thanks, guys. Thank you to Spa, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Next Tuesday. Oh, there's we're going to pull the lever for our Fitch and Leeds, which we give away every time as well. We're going to have a case of Fitch and Leeds, and we're going to see who's going to win it this time around. See Brian Wilkinson. Brian, he was one before as well, but it's
Have a
got
dog
90
hunt.
days. We're in. Brian, thank you. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next Tuesday. We'll head out. No, it's fine. Thank you, Eddie. What a fantastic chat, but it was really, really cool.
Relax, sit down. Coming out of PE town. One drink, find a shot. Never mind your liver, get to Gino's spot.
Gino Spot!
Get to Gino's spot.
Gino Spot!
Have a laugh, have a giggle, and exercise your middle. Have a Gino shot.